it's Dr. Betsy Greenleaf, and we're back with another episode of Body, Mind, Spirit. And I'm very excited to be talking with Dr. Trevor Cates today. And we've had her on the show before. She's the spa doctor, but we're going to be talking to her about her new project that's coming up. So thank you so much, Dr. Trevor, for being with us.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so you have a new project that's coming out very soon. I want everybody to check it out, but what are you doing?
Yeah, so it's a docu-series on women's health and hormones. It's Hormones, Health, and Harmony is the name of it, and is a 10-part docu-series. So not just like a documentary, but 10 of these. And I've interviewed over 50 experts at this point, and we are covering all different aspects of women's hormones, because there's so many misunderstandings and myths out there about how our hormones impact our health. And a lot of times women don't even realize that all of us are impacted by our hormones.
You know what? I think that's really important. And I think in general, most people have heard the word hormones. I think sometimes when you first say the word hormones, the first thing that comes to my mind is like teenagers, like hormones gone crazy. But can you explain a little bit for people who don't have much of an understanding, like what are hormones and why do we care about them?
Right. Well, I mean, they're important chemical messengers in the body, and they really help with so much of the functioning in our bodies. And I think it's better to give examples, because I think a lot of times people think of, like for women, especially estrogen and progesterone, but they don't really realize that we have so many other hormones. We have our adrenal hormones, which help with our managing stress and, and also being able to relax and having that balance of those. We have our thyroid hormones, which are important for our energy and metabolism. We have testosterone. A lot of times people think testosterone is just something that men have, but women need that too. We have testosterone too, and we need it. And so then of course there is estrogen and progesterone, but then we're also other hormones like melatonin that help us sleep, leptin and ghrelin that help with our appetite. There's insulin that helps with regulating our blood sugar. And so I think a lot of times people don't realize there are all these hormones. So when I start naming these, you start to realize appetite, energy, weight, sex drive, our cycles, our energy, so many of these things that we experience on a day-to-day basis are ruled in large part by our hormones. And I think that so often we have symptoms like this, like low energy or lack of drive, or low sex drive, or irregular cycles, or PMS, or these different things, and we're like, oh well, that's just normal because everybody has that, right? That's just part of being a woman. But just because they're common doesn't mean that that's healthy. That we actually, our hormones are really beneficial for us and they help us in so many ways. But when they get out of balance, that's when we have these symptoms.
That's a good point, because you're right. There's so many, and I hear it all the time in my office where women are just like blowing off their symptoms. Is like, oh, this is just a natural part of aging, or this is just what it's like to be a woman. So what should we be doing to kind of listen to those signals?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think the first thing to realize is that just because you're having a symptom and a lot of other women have it, doesn't mean that you should just put up with it. And also, you don't want to just suppress it. I mean, from being a naturopathic physician and, with a very much believing in an integrative approach and seeing over, 20 years in practice, seeing the benefit of people embracing this integrative approach, that it's really important not to just look at a symptom and think of it as annoying and that we need to suppress it. Because if we just quickly jump to medications to suppress a symptom, like a sleep medication, that's actually not really going to help your sleep in the long term. It might give you, a few nights sleep and you could use it as a Band-Aid for a little while, but it's not going to give you the results that you need from a good night's sleep, which is feeling refreshed and feeling energized. And taking a sleep medication isn't really necessarily going to do that for you. Again, it might get you through a short period of time, but it's not addressing what's really behind it.
What made you decide to do a docuseries on women's health and hormones?
Yeah, I think it's just, being in practice now for 22 years, and I don't see a lot of patients anymore, but certainly for a good portion of this time, I have seen women in particular that come in to see me. And as a naturopathic physician, I think I oftentimes see the women that have tried everything and they're coming to me as like, oh my God, I'm so fed up. Please help me. I have done this, I've done this, I've done this, and I've not gotten any help with this. And I realized that I want to help to educate women. So hopefully they can avoid the point that they get to when they come in to see me. And then also, if they're already at that point, they realize they're not alone and that there are plenty of options out there, because we really don't need to just suffer through. I think there is this misbelief with women that we just power through and we just suffer through. And certainly we're very powerful and we're strong. And I don't want to downplay that, but we don't have to suffer through. And that when we start to get symptoms, or even we start to see them in our daughters and young people and young women, and instead of just dismissing it or covering it up, address it early on. Because I can tell you from experience, if you wait, the longer you wait, it's harder to unravel all of those underlying causes. And so, for example, I know a lot of my patients, they struggle with hormonal acne, like when they were going through puberty. And so even if they weren't sexually active, they were put on birth control pills. And that is, what that does is it further disrupts our hormones. It further throws them out of balance at a very critical time in our development, when our hormones are still getting, kind of up to speed and things are still developing. And then we put birth control pills on there. And I mean, I don't want to downplay birth control pills as a form of birth control, because that's what they were designed for. So let's just save them for that, not for hormonal acne, because there are plenty of other things that we can do for that. But the problem is with birth control pills is then you're suppressing testosterone, you're throwing off your hormonal messengers and balance and that feedback that happens with our hormones when they're in a balanced state. You're also, the other problem with birth control pills is, they can disrupt the gut microbiome. They can create nutritional deficiencies like B vitamins. They can create issues. So what's happened in my practice, what I was seeing is I was seeing the woman that was put on birth control pills as a teenager. She was on them for many, many years and then just continued on as a form of birth control. And then she goes off them, is like, okay, now I want to get pregnant, and isn't able to get pregnant. Her cycles are all over the place and she's really struggling. And then the other group that I was seeing a lot of women were that women put on birth control pills during perimenopause. So they're not really, like thinking too much about, using it as a form of birth control, but because they were maybe having hormonal acne again, or having these irregular cycles and PMS and things going on. And so they're put on birth control pills and it's just not working for them. And so other things that oftentimes were happening in my practice was women are put on antidepressants. And again, antidepressants aren't necessarily a bad thing from my perspective. I think that they can have their place, but I think oftentimes women are too quickly put on them because they're told it's in your head, like, what's your experience? You're just stressed. It's in your head. And so we'll just give you this antidepressant. But then these women would come in to see me and it's not in their head, it's their hormones. And so, I'd help get them off the antidepressants while helping balance their hormones. And it was just a game changer for them. So I've been doing this over the years, one-on-one with people. And and then also, I think I was focusing a lot, the last 5-6 years, I focused a lot on skin, my book, Clean Skin from Within. And still one of the biggest things that kept coming up, even around skin, was I talk about hormonal imbalance is one of the big root causes in my book, and my first book. And then women would come back, but I have all these questions about hormones. Like, what about this one? And how does this? And so I was like, there's so much to share about hormones, and we really need a good platform to share it. So what better place than a 10-part docuseries? So each episode is an hour, and we go deep into each aspect of what we're experiencing as women. And this really it covers a variety of ages and issues. And I mean, I learned actually a lot too from all of the great experts like you that I interviewed for the Docuseries, all of these amazing experts.
You know what, there's so many things I want to touch on. So I'm going to start with first with the birth control. And especially like what you were talking about with anxiety and depression. And I see so much of that in women, and especially more so in that perimenopausal age group. But then you were talking about how birth control affects the gut. And 90% of our serotonin, our happy hormone, is made in our gut. And so now we're taking birth control and we're throwing that off, and that may be contributing to this anxiety and depression on top of other things. So
Absolutely. And it's so much more connected than people realize. And I don't really want to blame, the medical system or conventional medicine. I mean, part of the problem is that doctors aren't given enough time with their patients. They're given 7 to 10 minutes with the patient. And so they're trying to think quickly, what do I have in my doctor's bag that I can quickly, hand over? And so birth control pills and antidepressants, sleep medications have been that like sort of quick thing to give people, like, from their perspective, I want to give that person relief. But this is just not working well. And you and I both know that eventually, like, they'll just keep coming back in and be like, but this isn't working. Is there something else? Is there something else? Until you really get to what's underneath. And sometimes, like you talked about gut health, sometimes we really need to dig in deep and see what's going on with the gut microbiome, what's going on with their gut health, and starting there. And nutritional deficiencies are common, inflammation, and we got to look underneath the hood and see what's going on.
that perimenopausal period is such a tough one because it's hard to deal with as a physician too, because women come in and their periods are off, their hormones are going crazy, and they don't want to have that surprise pregnancy. So I always find that period of time is almost the most difficult when it comes to counseling people on birth control, because ideally, I don't like people using the hormonal birth control because a lot of times it's using synthetic hormones that we know can cause these vitamin deficiencies and gut imbalance and body inflammation. But then at the same time, it's one of the ones that regulates these periods. And that time is like their periods are all over the place. What have you learned in your docuseries about that topic?
I know it is a tough one. I mean, and certainly birth control pills have been very powerful for women, and a fabulous addition to our lives, for our, especially, for the women that came before us as well. And that we get to choose when we want to have a baby, right? So it is very empowering. But the good news is that it's not just birth control pills. There are other forms of birth control. And ideally, we want to get our hormones into a balanced place where we're very aware of our cycles, and we can have more of the, checking cervical mucus and basal body temperature and that sort of thing. But like you said, during perimenopause, a lot of times your cycles are all over the place. So it's hard to really track that. So, I mean, there are certainly other types of birth control like IUDs or, barrier methods. And so I think but it's a very personal decision. So I think it's good for women to talk with their doctors, find out all the different options, and then figure out what works best for you.
That's something I keep thinking, oh, man, I would love to see a company, and man, I would love to do it myself, but I just don't have the funds. I would love to see a company come out with like a bioidentical version of birth control. I'm like, why haven't they done that yet?
I remember asking my gynecology teacher that in med school, like, why can't this be created? Because, I was in naturopathic medical school and she's a naturopathic doctor. And she's like, yeah, good luck with that. If you can create that, I'm going to help invest in that. Like, if you can figure that out, that's great. But, she said, it's not as easy as you may think.
I know. And I don't dare try. I mean, I will give bioidentical hormones for hormone therapy, but I don't dare do a try for birth control because I don't want to be the person blamed for a surprise baby. So yeah. All right. So I can't wait to find out more about this when we come back from the commercial break.
Yes.
80% of women will develop a pelvic health condition at some point in their lives. There is relief. There is hope. The Pelvic Floor Store, your resource for personal health.
And we're back with Dr. Trevor Cates, the spa doctor. So Trevor, we were talking so much about hormones. That's the other thing. I say the word hormones, and I find that a lot of my patients look like a deer in headlights. They're like, hormones, I don't want those. They're bad for me. So what would you say to a patient, because that is an underlying belief for a lot of women, like, oh, they cause cancer, they're bad.
Yeah.
So
no, I know. And it's gotten, there's a lot of misunderstandings out there about hormones, and there's so many different kinds, and there are different dosages. And I think a lot of doctors also still are concerned about the Women's Health Initiative study that was done so many years ago, that there's this belief that all hormones, that when you say hormone therapy, that they're all the same. But we talk a lot about this in the Docuseries in great depth. And I interview, 50 different people talking about this, in that we talk about the different types of hormone therapies, and that bioidentical hormones are quite different than what was used in the Women's Health Initiative study that showed a lot of the risk factors that a lot of people are still believing is related to all different types of hormone therapies. So bioidentical hormones are made to be biomolecularly the same as our own hormones. So with that means that when our bodies when we take in bioidentical hormones, whether it's oral or a cream or a pellet, an injection, there are different ways to get them, that our body sees them as our own. And that then it's like, oh, I know what to do with this. And it does what it's supposed to do with it. And even though they're not endogenous, they're not our own, but our body's like, oh, okay, I'll take that up and I'll do what I'm supposed to do with it. Whereas when you look at something like Premarin, which is made from horse mare urine, so it's a totally different type of animal. It's not there. It's not molecularly, it's not the same as our own types of estrogen. So then the body's like, what do I do with this? Well, I'll take this part and I'll use this. And then I've got this other part that I don't know what to do with. So it just kind of floats around. So then that's when we get into trouble, is then the body is in trying to do something that it's not really designed to do. And then the other thing is, synthetic forms of hormones, like the synthetic form of progesterone. Progestin is another one that's created problems for people. But again, it's not like our own. So our body's then trying to figure out what to do with it. So then the metabolism of these hormones is then different. So then we end up with these potentially harmful metabolites. And that's when we really get into trouble. And I do think that whenever a woman is thinking about doing bioidentical hormones, I think it's important to first start with a healthy foundation. I don't want to just jump on and put a woman on bioidentical hormones. I first want to make sure that her gut is healthy, that her digestion is working well, her liver function, her metabolism is working well. Might want to do some genetic testing, do some gut testing, potentially do some salivary or urine hormone testing to see what's currently going on. And then include bioidentical hormones as part of a healthy lifestyle. So I think that that's one of the things, though, it is an important part that we talk about in the docuseries, is exactly how do we do that?
That's such a good example of, how these things are working. And this is something too, that in my upcoming course, we're going to be delving into this a lot more. But you know what? I have some questions. You mentioned some other hormones that people don't usually think of as hormones. And I think the ones that I find the most interesting are the leptin and ghrelin, because I find those absolutely fascinating. What is leptin and ghrelin?
Yeah, so they are hormones that impact our appetite. So I think a lot of times people don't realize that what, the choices that we make with, when we're eating food, or our cravings are beyond like what's just in our head. It's like these hormones are actually playing a role in this. And, we talk a lot about this in the Docuseries, and people with a lot more experience than I have on this. But I think, well, this isn't one that's a bioidentical hormone where you would go and take ghrelin or leptin, but there are certain things more in lifestyle that we can do to help balance these. And sometimes, because of genetic predispositions and things like that, it can be a little bit more challenging for some people versus others. So the good news is that even with genetics, we aren't stuck with our genes. We can change our lifestyle and change our genetic expression to help that.
It's funny with those two. The only way I ever remember them is leptin is your like leave it alone hormone. It makes you like not want to eat. Where ghrelin, it makes your stomach growl and it makes you want to eat. So that's the only way I ever remember those two. So, and I find it, that one fascinating. And then you brought up some other things like insulin and melatonin. So how are these also working in our body as hormones?
Yeah. So insulin is really important in helping with balancing our blood sugar. And of course, some people are more predisposed to having problems with this. Someone with type 1 diabetes, they're just not going to have insulin. So they're going to have to be getting insulin to support their body's ability to balance blood sugar. But most of us, we still have insulin, and it is what's used to help manage our blood sugar so that it doesn't go haywire. And that, because we need blood sugar, a little boost in blood sugar to give us energy, right? And to expend our energy to do things. But we don't want our blood sugar too high either, because that can kind of make us feel crazy. I mean, think about like kids at a birthday party after eating birthday cake. They're all running around like crazy. We don't want to be doing that all the time. So it's really about insulin helps us with that balance. Now, when people are eating unhealthy, like eating a lot of sugar, eating a lot of carbs, carb heavy foods, and they're not getting a good balance, then they might start getting more pre-diabetic or diabetic. Their blood sugar might start creeping up. So then we want to really keep an eye on that, looking at fasting blood sugar, looking at hemoglobin A1C and things that will show us what the blood sugar is doing, so that we can catch it early and do things to really balance our blood sugar so the insulin is working optimally.
I was thinking too, especially with your specialty with skin, and correct me if I'm wrong. So I've always looked at skin as really kind of like the messenger to be like, hello, there's a problem going on. I think a lot of people focus on like, okay, I'm having a problem with my skin. Like, let me just start putting all these lotions, potions, creams, and things on it without looking like your book says, like clean skin from within, or, that there's something else going on. So what have you found over the years with that?
Yeah, well, and in my last book, I talk about how skin is our magic mirror, that it's our largest organ. It's an outer reflection of what's going on inside our bodies. And I think this is so important for us, because we can, instead of being annoyed by our skin, by the breakouts, by the rashes, by my wrinkles and things that are happening with our skin, just realizing that our skin is just this outer reflection we can actually see. We can't take a deep look into our bodies easily, especially, let's just, we can look in the mirror though and see our skin, or look down at our skin and like, wow, things are changing here. What's going on? And like you said, I think so many people are quick to just like, oh, I've got dry skin, I've got dry skin patches, or I've got these little bumps on the back of my arm. I'll just use more lotion, or I'll just exfoliate more. Or with their face, they're like, oh, I'm just going to cover up with more makeup, and like watch a YouTube or a TikTok, and you're like, oh, there's this trick for wearing more makeup, and I can just hide all these blemishes. And that's fine. We love our beauty practices. practices, and that's all great. But it's also important to stop from it. Like, why am I breaking out? What is happening? And I was just talking about blood sugar balance. And that is like one of the big root causes behind skin issues, is that if our blood sugar is getting too high, we're getting these peaks, we can actually develop more acne. We can develop more premature aging, wrinkles, sagging skin, because of the damage that can happen to collagen with elevated blood sugar. And so, these are all interconnected. And so I've always enjoyed using skin as a tool. And like, doctors, we do this. A patient walks in and we're like immediately looking at their skin, right? Like, what's going, oh, they've got like dry, itchy, red, like whatever breaking out. We notice these things and are like, kind of note, like, okay, we got to address this, right? And so I'm just been really trying to help educate people too, that this is your feedback mechanism. Your body's giving you signal like that isn't the best food choice for you. Or, you need a little bit more sleep, or you might need some more nutrients. You might want to address your gut issues. You might want to address your hormones. So for like hypothyroidism, low thyroid function, one of the signs of that is dry skin. Of course, it comes with a lot of other symptoms. There can be low energy, hair loss, constipation, weight gain, those sorts of things. But dry skin is one of the key signs of hypothyroidism. So it's just, one of the tools that we have is our skin to look at, to give us messages about what's going on with our health.
That is amazing. Working on your documentary, is there anything that you found that like really just shocked you, or like, wow, I did not know that?
It has been really interesting. It's like, I graduated from medical school in 2000. So it's been a while since I've been in school. And of course we do our continuing medical education and all of that, but it's not like going back. I mean, it's almost like I got to go back to school and like hear all these doctors explain the processes of the body, but do it with their own level of experience and their wisdom and practice. And a lot of them are also, on a lot of podcasts and summits and things. So they're very well spoken. And so it was really great to be able to get a recap of that, to go back in that. And sometimes there are some things that I'm like, oh, I kind of have forgotten about that little piece of, like for example, and this is a simple one, but I think a lot of times we forget about cortisol in its relationship to blood sugar, and that, that there's a big connection there. And so things like that of like, it's really good to make those connections. And also things like leptin and ghrelin, and, like because in clinical practice, we're not giving leptin and ghrelin, that we oftentimes don't really talk about them as much, but it's nice. It was so great to kind of get that refresher. And I think it just, and hearing all these different doctors talk, and they're, especially in the episode that we talk about, where the episode 2 toxic, where we talk about detoxification and the importance of that, and how hormone metabolism and the efficacy of hormone metabolism and how key it is. And then hearing all these different doctors talk about what they do to help with their patients' detoxification, I think it was really interesting. And of course, there's a lot of overlap. And then there's some doctors that do things a little bit differently. So it's just fascinating to hear all of that.
That is amazing. I can't wait to check it out. So where can people find out more information about you and your and the documentary?
Yeah, absolutely. So people can go to thespadoctor.com. It's THESPADR.com. So doctors abbreviated DR. All the information is on there. We're going to give you a link as well so people can go directly to the Docuseries. And yeah, I hope, and you're on our in the Docuseries as well. So I hope people will come and watch the episodes. You're in different episodes throughout, so they have to watch the whole thing to catch all of you.
That is awesome. And it was so much fun actually to go out to California and shoot that. Interesting enough, just to let you know, that day that I shot, I literally got on a plane in Philadelphia, flew out there, shot the video, and flew back the same night.
Wow.
I was like, I don't know if I'll ever do that again. That was a lot of traveling in 24 hours. But at the time I was like, oh, this makes sense. I'll just, look at the flights and I'll just go out and I'll come back. It was exhausting.
Well, it was very efficient of you. And I really appreciate you taking the time to come out. It's nice to do in-person interviews when we can.
Oh, it was so much fun. So everybody make sure that you check it out. We'll have a link for you. And once again, don't forget to tune in next week for another episode of Body, Mind, Spirit. Go check out wytv7.org. You can find us there. And while you're there, check out all the other great programming that we have. And don't forget to hit that donate button, because every dollar that you donate, even the smallest amount, helps to go towards other programs and additionally towards our community events. So, and the good that we're doing out in the community. So once again, thank you, Dr. Trevor, for being with us today.
Absolutely. It was great being here with you.